Good day. This is the Ms.Shame, keeping you informed, keeping you grounded, and keeping you off that bullshit and pushing the truth. Today's article is entitled Growing Underwater Heat Blob Speeds Demise of Arctic Sea Ice. This is by Paul Voosen, and the date is August 25th, 2020. That's a long one, so get ready. In March, soon after arriving aboard the Polar Stern, a German icebreaker frozen into Arctic sea ice, Jennifer Hutchings watched as ice broke up around the ship, weeks earlier than expected, even as scientists on this search cruise scrambled to keep field instruments from plunging into the ocean. Hutchings, who studied ice deformation at Oregon State University, Corvallis, couldn't suppress a thrill at seeing the crack up, as if she had spotted a rare bird. I got to observe firsthand what I've studied, she says. Arctic ice itself is an endangered species. Next month's extent will reach its annual minimum, which is poised to be among the lowest on record. The trend is clear. Summer ice covers half of the area it did in the 1980s, and it is because it is thinner. Its volume is down 75%, with the Arctic warming 3 times faster than the global average. Most scientists grimly acknowledge the inevitability of the ice-free summers, perhaps as soon as 2035. It's definitely a win, not an if, says Alex Petty, a solar scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Now he and others are learning that warming atmosphere is far from the only factor of speeding up ice loss. Strengthening currents and waves are pulverizing the ice, and a study published last week suggesting deep heat in the Arctic Ocean has risen and now melting the ice from below. I did not ask for that to go down like that. Okay. Ice has kept its grip on the Arctic with the help of an unusual temperature inversion in the underlying waters. Unlike the Atlantic or the Pacific Oceans, the Arctic gets warmer as it gets deeper. Bitter winters and chilly, buoyant fresh water from the Eurasian rivers cool its surface layers, which help preserve the underside of the ice. But at a greater depth sits a warm blob of salty Atlantic water thought to be safely separated from the sea ice. As the reflective ice melts, however, it is replaced by darker water, which absorbs more of the sun's energy and warms. Those warming surface waters are likely migrating down into the blob, which robotic temperature probes, moorings, and oceanographic surveys show that steadily warming and growing. With enough heat to melt the Arctic's ice 3 to 4 times over, the blob could devour the ice from below if the barrier of the cold surface layers ever dissipates. Measurements from eastern Arctic Ocean, published last week in the Journal of Climate, shows the blob, usually found 150 meters below the depth, has recently moved up within 80 meters of the surface. Excuse me. Increased turbulence means some of the heat is now melting ice, says Igor Polyakov, an oceanographer at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. This heat has done regionally the key forcing of sea ice decay. The process is called Atlantification. It is already well underway, but the Barents Sea, north of Norway, where fingers of warm Atlantic waters have spread north and risen, melting sea ice even in winter months. The invasion shows no sign of stopping, says Helene Absorption, Hope I said that right. It's Russian. An oceanographer at the University of Bergen who has helped chart this migration. Ultimately, we expect to extend into the Arctic more. Well, let me show you. Got a glare up there. And a little bit. Turn that a little bit. That glare off there. Yeah. See that? Big change. My goodness. All right, let's continue. I'm not sweaty out here. Okay. The 134 million multiple disciplinary drafting observatory for the study of Arctic climate, Mosaic, based on the polar stern, is exploring another ice-destroying feedback. The ship froze itself into a flow in October of 2019 to give the team a chance to observe the flow for one full year as the summer melt season shifted back into freezing. But the project ran into challenges. First came the COVID-19 pandemic, which made planned personnel rotations difficult. Then the ice drifted too far south too quickly. Late in July, the day after the team pulled up its remaining instruments, the floe broke and melted. To me, it is a big loss, and I am pretty bummed about it, says Matthew Shoup, a climate scientist at University of Colorado, Boulder, who helped lead U.S. contributions to the cruise. But, he added, there was a bonus. We never planned to be around for that death of an ice flow process. The polar stern's flow is not an isolated case. Remote sensing satellites show that over the past 20 years, ice has been drifting faster, potentially sweeping into warmer waters, said Sinead Farrell, an ice scientist at the University of Maryland College Park. One reason for the change in pace could be faster currents in the Arctic Ocean. As ice melts, exposes more water to the push of the wind, says Arlid Sunford, a physical oceanographer at the Norwegian Polar Institute. We think we see signs of that. Another factor could be an increase of roughness of sea ice, which follows wind to catch and propel it. Mosaic scientists deploy GPS stations across the flow's melange of first year and thicker multi-year ice to monitor its speed and deformation. They suspect that as the ice becomes thinner and weaker, it is more prone to the crunch and crumble that builds up when catching ridges, Hutchings said. But they are still resolving whether that is true. The turmoil took a toll. The turmoil took a heavy toll on the expedition, crushing some instruments like aluminum cans and destroying snow sampling sites. It was frustrating, Shoup says. We don't really control anything here, he says. The Arctic is telling us its story, and we just need to be clever enough to document it. ISAT-2 is a laser altimeter launched by NASA in 2018. Will help extrapolate findings from Mosaic to the rest of the Arctic, Unlike previous satellites, ICESat-2 can distinguish between ice floe cracks and melt ponds on top, and is already showing stark differences between multi-year and first-year ice, Farrell says. And a surprise, the ICESat-2 team is finding that the multi-year ice overall is twice as rough as first-year ice. It's kind of like aging skin, he says. They get more wrinkly over time. The satellite also seems to be capable of capturing winds amid the ice and linking them to nearby storms, Petty says. It's another worrying mechanism that could speed up ice loss, he says. As waves break the ice apart, it gets more exposed to heat and melts further. The retreat of the ice bodies ill of biological climate, but it's making the Arctic easier to study. This month saw the start of the Symphonic Arctic Survey, which will knit together more than a dozen national Arctic cruises by icebreakers and other research ships. The survey will cover the Arctic's entirety, providing a near simultaneous picture of currents, life, and water conditions and chemistry, rather than a collection of regional snapshots. I messed that word up. A collection of regional snapshots over time. The pandemic delayed all but 2 cruises, which were planned for this summer. Those of Japan's Maria and South Korea's Aaron. But once completed, the survey could answer basic questions such as whether the Arctic is a net source or sink of carbon dioxide. And it could not be done in the icebound Arctic of old. Now, Sunfer says, we can go wherever and whenever we want. My thoughts on this is some more about what's going on within our climate. We're going to be seeing more impressive natural occurrences. We're going to be just really being able to really see, what this earth can do and how awesome she is. I think it's a sign of the times is that our climate is changing. When our climate changes, that means that our ground is going to change, our water is going to change, our air is going to change. So hopefully this will be for the good. It's a process that we all should be trusting and believing in. But if you would like to comment, subscribe, please do. And you have been informed. Please do not forget to like, share, and hit the notification button. And thank you so very much for listening. Goodbye.